the hip bone that make up the hip bone. First of all, we have this ilium. Can you see? So this part is the ilium, which is highlighted in the slide I've shown. And then at the inferior part of the hip bone, we have this part that is the pubis. And then posterior inferiorly, we have the ischium, right? So we have the ilium, and then we have the pubis, this part, and then the ischium, this part. So as you can see on this slide, this part is the ilium, this part is the pubis, and this part is the ischium. Moving on, what's a hip bone? It's a large, flat, curved bone that forms the sides and front of the pelvis. It's also called os coxae, coxal bone, or innominate bone. Os means bone, and coxa means hip or hip joint. It's an irregular type of bone, and it's a flat bone. Now, some characteristic features. It's the hip bone itself is made up of three bones. I've told you it's made up of the ilium superiorly and then anterior inferiorly. So if I hold the hip bone like this, I hope you can appreciate it now. So this is the ilium, right? And then this part is the pubis, right? And then this part is the ischium, right? So if I hold it like this, you can see that the ilium lies superiorly, the pubis lies anterior inferiorly, and the ischium lies posterior inferiorly, right? So you should know how to hold the bone. You're supposed to hold the bone like this, and then another bone from the other side joins this bone at the pubic symphysis. I'll show that to you in the later slides. So we have three bones that are making up the hip bone. In this lecture today, we're going to quickly cover the ilium bone. Only the osteology, no attachments yet. So characteristic features of this bone. Now, in the ancient times, we used to have this wine or vinegar cup, which was called acetabulum. So like the big lords would drink wine, or especially like a special kind of wine, they would drink it in this cup, but this cup means a cup of like a vinegar cup, right? So it comes from the word acetabulum, means vinegar cup. Now, what's the acetabulum? Can you see this rounded cup-like area? This is the acetabulum. Now, the acetabulum is very important because when we talk about the ilium and we talk about the pubis or ischium, we need to see how many parts of the acetabulum are formed by that bone. So as you can see, this is the ilium bone, and 2/5 of this bone, of this ilium bone, is forming the acetabulum. So the acetabulum 2/5 is formed by the ilium bone above. Now we have a special kind of cartilage from which this acetabulum develops, and that's called the triradiate cartilage. Why it's called the triradiate cartilage? Because three bones are fusing to form the entire acetabulum. We have the ilium from above, then the pubis from the anterior inferior side, and the ischium from the posterior inferior side, right? So these three bones are separated from a special kind of cartilage that's called the triradiate cartilage, and then they finally fuse to form the acetabulum of the hip bone. So we've done that. This was the acetabulum, and 2/5 of it was formed by the ilium. Now we have a special opening called the obturator foramen. The pubis, which is here, and the ischium, which is here, is separated from each other. So they're separated from each other by a large oval opening called the obturator foramen. Moving on, the hip joint. Now, as you can see that this is the acetabulum, and the acetabulum articulates with the femoral head, right? And this area where the ligament is entering the fovea capitis of the femur, you can see that the femoral head is all covered by the hyaline cartilage except this area, which I told you is the fovea capitis, where the ligamentum teres attaches, right? So the acetabulum articulates with the head of femur to form the hip joint. It's a diarthrosis freely movable joint, right? So you can feel that at your hip joint, you can do a lot of movements in a lot of planes. So it's a very freely movable joint. Now we have the pubic symphysis. Look here. I told you that two hip bones will unite anteriorly at the pubic tubercle of the pubis bone. I'll show you the pubic tubercle when we do the pubis. Anyways, both these bones will unite anteriorly to form the pubic symphysis. So anteriorly in the midline, the pubic symphysis is present. Again, it's a slightly movable joint. Now we have the sacroiliac joint. Posteriorly, where the ilium ends, it articulates with the sacrum. So both the iliums posteriorly, they articulate posteriorly. Look at this. So posteriorly, this area articulates with the sacrum to form the sacroiliac joint, right? So posteriorly, they make a joint with sacrum and coccyx to make sacroiliac joint and complete the pelvic girdle. Moving on, the side determination. To do the side determination, we need to see that the flat end or the flat expanded part of the ilium is the upper part of the bone. The acetabulum, this vinegar cup-like structure, this acetabulum is directed laterally and the obturator foramen lies below the acetabulum, right? So for side determination, we need to see that the expanded ilium part lies superiorly and it forms the upper part of the bone, and the acetabulum, as you can see this acetabulum, it lies laterally. So it's lying laterally because it's articulating with the femur. And then the obturator foramen is bounded by anteriorly by the thin pubis. Now you can feel that the pubis is thin and the ischium is a little bit thicker. So the thin pubis is bounded, and the obturator foramen is bounded anteriorly by the thin pubis and posteriorly by the thick and strong ischium. These four features will put your bone in a special position, which is called the anatomical position, right? So you should be able to determine the side of this bone as soon as you pick the bone up in the viva. Moving on to the anatomical position, I told you that the expanded end is upwards. The upper part of the bone is formed by the ilium, and then the acetabulum is directed laterally, and the pubis forms the anterior boundary of the obturator foramen, right? Now, as we can see in this, as we can see in this picture, okay, as we can see in this picture, we have the pubic symphysis in the anterior side, and then we have the anterior superior iliac spine, which lies in the same coronal plane, right? So where is the anterior superior iliac spine? It's here. This is the anterior superior iliac spine, and this is the pubic symphysis. So if I try to keep a sheet of paper here, both these structures will be lying in the same plane, right? So this is my anterior superior iliac spine, and this is the part that forms the pubic symphysis with the other hip bone, right? So both of them lie in the same plane. It's the image is also showing you the anterior superior iliac spine here. It's very important to distinguish this because it's like a marker for a lot of other structures that we're going to learn. Moving on. The pelvic surface of the body of pubis is directed up, backwards, and upwards. So if I talk about the pubis and the body of pubis and the pelvic surface, can you see that the pelvic surface of the pubis is going to be at the back, right? So if I say this is the pubis and this is the pelvic surface, the one at the back, because it's forming the pelvic area behind it. There's a pelvic cavity behind it. So the pelvic surface of the body of pubis is directed backwards and upwards. Try to imagine that the pelvic cavity is located behind the pubic symphysis. That's what it's trying to say, that the pelvic cavity is behind it. So the body will be directed like backwards and upwards, right? The symphysial surface of body, which will be lying in the median plane. So this is the symphysial surface of the body that lies in the median plane. So the pelvic cavity lies backwards and the symphysial body lies in the median plane. Now the ilium, as I told you, it has two parts. It has an upper expanded part, which is shown as the orange wing in this image, and it has a purple body that is shown forms 2/5 of the acetabulum, right? Ilium means loin in Latin. Now we've done this. Can you see? There's a special line called the arcuate line. So somewhat the wing and the body, or the upper part or the lower part of the ilium, is somehow separated by the arcuate line, right? So what's the arcuate line? It's just a demarcation between the upper part and the lower part of the ilium. Okay. Now we have a special crest. Can you see this purple line? The special crest which extends from the anterior superior iliac spine to the posterior superior iliac spine. This special crest is called the iliac crest, right? So I have the anterior superior iliac spine and I have the posterior superior iliac spine. This entire crest that extends from the anterior superior iliac spine to the posterior superior iliac spine is the iliac crest. Now, when I talk about the ilium, it has two ends. The upper end is marked by broad convex ridge called the iliac crest, which I've told you before, and the lower end is smaller or narrower, fused with pubis and ischium at the acetabulum. So this is the lower end that it's talking about, and this is the upper end that it's talking about. Okay, moving on now, when you talk about the iliac crest, it starts from the anterior superior iliac spine to the posterior superior iliac spine, right? Now we have three characteristic features. We have three borders of the ilium. First, we have an anterior border, which extends from the anterior superior iliac spine to the acetabulum. Can you see here that the border extends from the anterior superior iliac spine to the acetabulum? And then the medial border, here is the medial border. So this is the roughened area and this is the smooth area. I'm looking at the inner part of the upper part of the ilium. So there's a medial border here which is like a demarcation between the gluteal surface. We'll study this later. This is the gluteal surface. This is the rough sacropelvic surface. But basically the medial border extends from the iliac crest here to the iliopubic eminence here. Okay, so you can see it in the pink line I've drawn. Moving on, the posterior border extends from the posterior superior iliac spine here. The posterior superior iliac spine to up to the upper end of border of ischium. Okay, so this entire pink area is the posterior border, right? So we have an anterior border, a medial border, and the posterior border. Moving on, we have three surfaces. Now this entire inside surface that is making part of the pelvic cavity is the gluteal or posterolateral surface. No, wait, not inside, outside. The outside area is the gluteal or posterolateral surface because the gluteal muscles are attaching here. Remember the gluteus maximus, minimus, and intermedius? They're attaching outside. So the gluteal or posterolateral surface is the outer surface of the ilium and it constitutes the gluteal surface. It's marked by three ridges or lines that we will do later. Then we have the iliac fossa. Now the iliac fossa is inside because both the iliac fossa on the right and left both join to form a pelvic cavity, right? And then we have the sacropelvic surface. This is the sacropelvic surface, this rough area, right? Look at this pink area. It's divided into three parts, sorry. It's divided into three parts, right? So it's divided into the iliac tuberosity. This is the iliac tuberosity. Can you see? This is the iliac tuberosity, right? And then this area is the auricular surface. Why is it called the auricular surface? Because it apparently resembles an ear. And this lower part of the area is called the pelvic surface. So we have the iliac tuberosity, we have the sacropelvic, we have the auricular surface and the pelvic surface. Iliac tuberosity, auricular surface, and then pelvic surface, right? So a rough groove called the periauricular surface is usually found in this area. It is more deeper in the females. Now, when we talk about the iliac crest, right? So if I'm going to keep my bone here, you can see this is the iliac crest. Can you see that it has a outer lip and then it has an inner lip. So basically there are two lips, right? Can you see? So these two lips are very important. We have an outer lip and then we have an inner lip of the iliac crest. It can be felt in living at lower limit of flank. Try to touch yours and see if you can feel yours. Now, when we talk about the iliac crest, we can divide it into a ventral 2/3, a ventral 1/3, and a posterior 2/3, right? So the broad convex ridge forming the upper end of ilium is the iliac crest. It can be felt in living at lower limit of flank. And we divide the crest into ventral 2/3 and posterior 1/3, right? Now, the iliac crest runs from the anterior superior iliac spine to the posterior superior iliac spine. An important thing is that the highest point of the iliac crest is situated little behind the midpoint. So if I keep the bone in the anatomical position, I will be able to see that the highest point of my iliac crest is situated a little behind the midpoint of my iliac crest. Highest means in the anatomical position, which part is highest. It is not the midpoint. It's a little bit behind the midpoint. If I draw an imaginary transverse plane between both the midpoints on the right and left hip bones, on the right and left iliums, this will be called an intercrystal plane. And why is it important? Because the intercrystal plane passes at the level of the L4 vertebra. And clinically, it is an important cause because lumbar puncture is done at this level. So in operation theaters, when we have to do lumbar puncture, we go to the intercrystal plane because it's located at the level of vertebra L4. Now, what was I saying? Ends of iliac crest. So the anterior end is the anterior superior iliac spine. It can be prominent. If you touch your lower flank, you will be able to touch your anterior superior iliac spine. Posterior superior iliac spine, I don't think you can really feel it. Now, two segments morphologically. We have a ventral segment. I told you it's the anterior two-third of the crest. It consists of an outer lip, inner lip, and an intermediate area. If you look at the ventral side of the crest, can you see that there is a outer lip, there is an inner lip, and there is the iliac tubercle. So this is the iliac tubercle. Can you see this? This is the iliac tubercle, this broadened part ventrally on the iliac crest. This is the iliac tubercle. Now the iliac tubercle is an elevation at outer lip 5 centimeter behind the anterior superior iliac spine at the level of L5. So when I start from the anterior superior iliac spine, I go back 5 centimeter. I see that there is a elevation at the outer lip. This is the outer lip. And it's just 5 centimeter behind the anterior superior iliac spine. And at which level of vertebra does this exist? It is at the level of L5. Now, an imaginary transverse plane passes at this level, and this is called the intertubercular planes. Why it is called the intertubercular planes? Because if I draw an imaginary line from the right ilium's iliac tubercle to the left ilium's iliac tubercle, it will be called an intertubercular line. Then we have the iliac tubercle, which I've already explained. Can you see this red area on the amazing model that is twisting? 3D animation, guys. No, I just inserted a GIF from Pinterest. Okay, so the iliac tubercle is located approximately 5 centimeter posterior to the ASIS on the iliac crest. The transverse plane I talked about is called the transtubercle plane. The other plane that we did, does anyone remember which one it was? Intercrystal plane, right? It was the level of, it was at the level of L4 where we were doing the lumbar puncture. Now we've done the ventral two-third of the crest. We've got to do the posterior one-third or the dorsal one-third of the crest, which presents lateral and medial slope separated by the ridge. Now look at this. It's starting from the anterior superior iliac spine all the way to the posterior superior iliac spine. And we've talked about this iliac tubercle here. Can you understand that this is this image I'm looking from bird eye view, or I'm looking from a superior view at the iliac crest. So basically, I'm looking at this image. This is the anterior superior iliac spine, and I'm going all the way back to the posterior superior iliac spine, and I'm looking at this crest from above. I'm having a bird view at it. So this is the tubercle. This is the outer lip, the inner lip, right? And then there's a when you look, this is the ventral two-third that we've already studied, and this is the dorsal one-third. So this has an outer sloping part and an inner sloping part, right? And this is the posterior superior iliac spine. It's just saying that the ventral part is concave medially and the dorsal part is concave laterally. Sorry. Then we have borders of the ilium. We've done the anterior border, but just a little more detail at it, that the anterior border starts at the ASIS. When I say ASIS, it means anterior superior iliac spine. When I say PSIS, it means the posterior superior iliac spine. So it runs downward to the acetabulum. The upper part presents a notch. The lower part presents an elevation called the ASIS. Lower half of the spine is large, triangular, and rough area. Should I show it to you here? This is the rough area. So basically the anterior border starts at the ASIS. We're running downwards toward the acetabulum here. We're running downwards towards the acetabulum. And the upper part, this part represents a notch. And the lower part represents an elevation called the anterior inferior iliac spine. So there's an anterior superior iliac spine and there's an anterior inferior iliac spine. You can see these two. So this is the anterior superior iliac spine and this is the anterior inferior iliac spine. And the lower half of the spine is large, triangular, and rough area. So this area is large, triangular, and rough. Okay. If you can appreciate the bone, it will be easy for you guys to understand, but it's really shown very well on this image. So this is the iliac crest, this is the anterior superior iliac spine, and then this is the anterior inferior iliac spine, and this is the triangular rough area it was talking about, right? Okay, moving on to the posterior border in depth now. We've already done them superficially. It's extend from the PSIS to the upper border of ischium, few centimeters from the PSIS. So basically the posterior superior iliac spines. Another prominence is present called the posterior inferior iliac spine, right? Can you see that this is the greater sciatic notch and this is the posterior inferior iliac spine? So there was an anterior superior, anterior inferior iliac spine. Now posteriorly also there's a posterior superior iliac spine and a posterior inferior iliac spine, right? And after the posterior inferior iliac spine, we see this notch that is called the greater sciatic notch. Lower down the posterior border, large deep notch is present called the greater sciatic notch. So this is the greater sciatic notch. Now the medial border, as I told you, separates the iliac fossa from the sacropelvic surface. So basically, this is the iliac fossa and this is the sacropelvic surface. And in between is the medial border. It presents on inner or pelvic surface of ilium, extends from iliac crest all the way to the iliopubic eminence, separates the iliac fossa, this fossa, from the sacropelvic surface. The lower rounded part forms the ilial part of arcuate line. I told you that the arcuate line divides the ilium bone into the upper part and the lower part, the lower body part, which was forming the 2/5 of the acetabulum, right? So the ilial part of the arcuate line is formed by the medial border. Now, surfaces of the ilium, the gluteal surface lies on the outer side of the ilium where the gluteus muscles are attaching. It has 3 gluteal lines that we will see later. It's convex in front and concave behind. Then we have the lines of the ilium. We have 3 lines, the posterior gluteal line, the anterior gluteal line, and the anterior inferior gluteal line. Look at the posterior gluteal line. It is the shortest. It begins 5 centimeters in front of the posterior superior iliac spine and goes all the way to end at the upper part of greater sciatic notch. So on this, I'm talking about the gluteal surface, the outer surface, right? The outer surface has 3 lines. Now, if I start from the posterior superior iliac spine and go behind and run on the greater sciatic notch, right? Just end at the upper part of the greater sciatic notch. This line is the shortest and is just 5 centimeters. It's called the posterior gluteal line. Next is the anterior gluteal line. This is the longest. It's longest and it begins behind. So this is the anterior superior iliac spine. It begins 4 centimeters behind the anterior superior iliac spine, runs backwards and then downwards, ends at the upper border of greater sciatic notch. Wait, here, upper border of greater sciatic notch. So it starts somewhere here, 5 centimeters behind anterior superior spine, and then runs all the way here at the upper border of the greater sciatic notch. All the 3 lines are ending at the greater sciatic notch, right? But they're starting somewhere else, but they're all ending near the greater sciatic notch. This ends at the middle of the upper border of greater sciatic notch. Now we have the smallest, not the smallest, the most inferior line. The inferior line is the inferior gluteal line. This begins a little above and behind the anterior inferior iliac spine. So the anterior gluteal line was starting 5 centimeters behind the anterior superior iliac spine, but now we are going behind the anterior inferior iliac spine, okay? So just a little above the anterior iliac spine, this line starts. Why is it inferiorly placed? Because it's called the inferior gluteal line. And then it runs backwards and downwards to end near the apex of the, so basically this is the greater sciatic notch and this is the apex. So it just it ends near the apex of the greater sciatic notch, okay? Moving on, there's an iliac surface on iliac fossa. It's like a depression. And if I see this green area, this is my iliac fossa. It's situated in front of medial border, forms the lateral wall of pelvis. The iliacus muscle originates from the upper two-thirds of this fossa. Now, the sacropelvic surface, I've told you three parts are present. It's divided into three parts. Does anyone remember? The iliac tuberosity, the auricular surface, and the pelvic surface. Okay, so it has an iliac tuberosity. This is the iliac tuberosity, upper large roughened area lying just below the dorsal segment of the iliac crest. So this is the iliac tuberosity, and then lying just below the dorsal segment of iliac crest. It lies just below the dorsal segment of iliac crest. It's raised in the middle and depressed above and below. Then we have the auricular surface. It looks like an ear, so we call it auricular. It lies anterior inferiorly to the iliac tuberosity. It articulates with sacrum to form the sacroiliac joint. If you remember, I showed the sacroiliac joint in the beginning of the lecture. And then we have the small triangular area where the sacropelvic area ends. This part, it's smooth. It lies anterior inferior to the articular surface. So this was the articular surface with the sacropelvic joint, and this is lying anterior inferiorly to it. Along the upper border of this greater sciatic notch, this surface is marked. So this is the basically, wait a second. Yeah. So basically, this is the greater sciatic notch, and it's the text is saying along the upper border of the greater sciatic notch, this surface is marked by preauricular sulcus, deeper in females than males. Now, in a special ligament I needed to talk about is because this ligament comes up a lot of times in the pelvic anatomy. And if you learn it from now, it will be very easy when this comes up in the pelvic anatomy later on. There's an inguinal ligament which starts from the anterior superior iliac spine all the way to the pubic tubercle. This ligament is very important because some structures pass beneath this ligament. And it's when you do the clinical anatomy of it, it is very important to understand how those structures are passing below it. So basically, this is the mid-inguinal part of the inguinal ligament. It extends from the anterior superior spine to the pubic tubercle. This is the pubic symphysis. The inguinal ligament, it's in the pelvis. It's actually two symmetrical bands. Each one starts at the ASIS towards the back of the wing, like bones of the pelvis. The ligaments then run in and down at an angle to the pubic tubercle. So you can see it's sort of running in and down towards the pubic tubercle. That's the bottom center of the pelvis, very deep in the ground. Okay, so that's it. Thank you guys. Hope you like.